Hello, fellow leaders. I'm Drew. How do you plan to get through the first 10 minutes of the toughest day of your life? One of the toughest days of my life came in 2008. I'm 8 years into my career as a U.S. Army officer. I met my wife that year. My unit is assigned to a suburb of Baghdad called Sadr City, and I'm in charge of a small base that houses 250 American and Iraqi soldiers. April 28th is a beautiful Monday morning. It's 8 a.m., and I'm on my second cup of coffee because we'd spent all night installing concrete barriers around the base. And at that very moment, an insurgent fighter parks this truck along the northern edge of our base and walks away. It's no ordinary truck, because covered in hay in the back of that truck is this array of 8 improvised rocket launchers ready to launch hundreds of pounds of explosives toward our building. A minute later, I'm up in the operations room and I'm chatting with another officer when a high-pitched whoosh interrupts our conversation. My colleague and I look at each other confused. You see, we had heard combat sounds before, but this is different. And in combat, different is rarely good. And before we can make sense of it, we hear it again. What's flying through the air at us at that moment are not rockets, like you might be thinking of. They're actually just gas tanks, like these, that have been cut open and filled with homemade explosives. And then a rocket motor attached to the bottom gives them just enough energy to fly in a tall arc toward the target. It's actually like a chip shot in golf. These explosive tanks begin landing next to our building. At a distance from me to you. Fuses burning down. The first tank explodes like a crack of lightning, and a shockwave slams into our bodies. About 20 of us scramble out of the operations room and dive into the hallway, pressing our chests against the floor. Seconds later, another explosion rocks us. We've got no idea what's happening outside, no idea how long this attack will last or how many casualties there will be. Another explosion. Hot smoke and dust rush inside as new holes in the building form. As the fourth tank detonates, I look to my right and see a pile of body armor and helmets that we could be using for protection, so we start passing those out. And as the sixth tank detonates, I yell for everyone in the hallway to get their medical equipment ready and to prepare for a bad day. This is the beginning of my crisis. We've just been attacked. I've got a fantastic team around me, and I'm the leader. The explosions did this to our building. It takes 70 seconds for all 8 rockets to detonate. I've got 70 seconds lying on the floor of that hallway to think about what to do next. 70 seconds to figure out what to say in this dire moment. 70 seconds to decide on the type of leader the team needs me to be. 70 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, in your crisis, you may not have that much time. Now, I hope your crisis won't look like this one. But raise your hand if you're confident that a crisis will come your way at some point in your professional life. All of us, right? Like it or not, your next crisis could be just around the corner. And it may not arrive as an explosion, like mine did, but let's imagine for a moment where you could be when it happens. You're a corporate PR manager when a cybersecurity breach exposes sensitive customer data. You're leading a student project, and your presentation gets corrupted the night before it's due. You're a small business owner, and a delivery truck carrying your most valuable product crashes. Or you're a hospital nurse manager when a global pandemic hits. So what will your next crisis look like? And when chaos strikes, what do? How do you lead when everything starts falling apart? Well, today, I'd like to share 3 actions that I've come to rely on in crisis and may help you in your next crisis. And as a leader, your first action in a crisis is to set the right emotional tone. Wait, Drew, hold on. Emotional tone? Really? Like feelings? I heard that leaders were supposed to be decisive and start issuing orders when crisis hits. Why emotions? I'm glad you asked. Because your next crisis will trigger emotions in your team. And the emotional state of the individuals and the team as a whole set the stage for their entire response. Research shows that during moments of stress, followers look to leaders for cues about how to respond. And leaders have mere seconds to signal the emotional state that's best for the crisis ahead. Leaders act like a thermostat. They can turn up or dial down the emotional energy of the organization. And you, with your words and your tone and your body language, you can offer comfort. You can inspire confidence, and you can foster control. Back in Solder City, as our building was coming apart, I tried to set the emotional tone by encouraging everyone in the hallway to prepare themselves. My hope was that a steady, familiar voice might give them some calm in the chaos of the moment. If the leader doesn't set the emotional tone, everyone else will. So, your first action in a crisis focuses on the people. Your second action addresses how the organization will function in this new and evolving environment you're in. Remember COVID and how jarring it was figuring out how to live life remotely? You may have even been part of an organization that struggled to adapt and suffered because of it. That's why, in those first few minutes, leaders must configure the organization for the crisis. This is when you put your manager hat on and focus on the day-to-day structure and operations that might not be ready for what's coming. For instance, because communication always accelerates in a crisis, decide how you'll talk to each other. Could be Zoom or Microsoft Teams or a conference line or shouting across your open concept office. In the military, we use radio to communicate. Every unit has several radio channels to conduct operations. But in an emergency like Solder City, the emergency gets priority over the other channels. We configure for the crisis so that we can solve the biggest problem. So besides communication, you may also need to adjust the roles and authorities that might not be appropriate for the situation. Look, your followers will be motivated people that you've empowered to solve routine problems. But when this crisis hits, they can make the situation worse by trying to solve a problem that's outside their lane. Consider this. In a crisis, who's authorized to speak publicly on behalf of the organization? And it's probably not Mark in accounting. Who's authorized to redirect assets or reassign team members to new roles? And how much money can your people spend in response to a crisis? In those first few minutes, with uncertainty and elevated risk, it's okay to exercise prudent micromanagement while configuring the organization for what may come. So, you set the right emotional tone. You configure the organization for crisis. And now, it's time to address the fact that crisis is destabilizing. It's uncomfortable because it takes us off our expected path. We think the world looks one way, and then something happens in the environment that shows us our view of the world is no longer valid. It's like looking up from your phone to realize that you got off at the wrong metro stop. Leaders can close this expectation gap and help followers see a new reality. I love the way businessman and author Max Dupree captures this idea. He says that the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. And that's your third action. As crisis hits, leaders must be ruthless about confirming facts in the flood of information, falsehoods, and assumptions. Take those initial reports with a grain of salt and tell your team it's okay to say, I don't know yet. Help them understand whether this is really a crisis or just an incident to endure. Dispel rumors and don't sugarcoat the situation. People will appreciate the brutal honesty, just like you do. At some point during the explosions in Sadr City, I became concerned that this might just be the start of a bigger attack. I needed to understand what was happening outside. I needed to understand reality. So I ran up this stairwell to get a view from the roof. That was my view. Once I had a good sense of what we were dealing with, I sent an update like this on the radio.
This is Mustang 6. Multiple explosions with structural damage on the northeast side. Unknown casualties. I'm in the northeast gun position with no signs of a complex attack at this time. Go to 100% security and start accountability.
Did I know what was going to happen next? No. Did I have all the answers? No. But I shared what I knew in the moment. And as a leader, you'll never have all the answers either. But you're the best person to offer perspective of this new reality you're facing together. So, set the right emotional tone, configure the organization for the crisis, and define a reality for the team. It was champion boxer Mike Tyson who said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face." Well, if you know you're going to get punched in the face, especially by Mike Tyson, if you know that you're going to have to lead in a crisis, a plan will help you get through it. So leaders need to prepare. How do you do that? Start by brainstorming with your team about what your next crisis might look like. Use ChatGPT with a simple prompt like tech company, project manager, list 10 crises. Visualize yourself leading with the 3 steps. Plan your actions and then rehearse what you can, because winging it is not a good crisis management strategy. But preparing for crisis isn't just about you performing the role in the moment. It's more than that. Your followers, our companies, certainly our governments, our communities. We deserve good leadership, especially in crisis. We need leaders who embrace the discomfort of crisis while guiding others to a new reality. We need leaders who care for their people, even while making tough decisions about those very people. And we need leaders who can find opportunity and hope, even in the most desperate situations. In the end, the Sadr City rocket attack, it injured 15 soldiers, and thankfully no one was killed. Remember those concrete barriers that we installed the night before? They forced the attacker to park the truck a few feet to the left. You can see it on the photo here. So those explosive tanks they fired at us, they landed next to our building instead of on top of it. Our preparations had worked. We had mitigated this attack before it even started. Which highlights an important point I'll leave you with. You can affect your environment in a crisis. You and your team aren't simply along for the ride. Your actions can make the situation more survivable, especially if you get those first few minutes right. And now you know what to do. Set the right emotional tone, configure the organization for the crisis, and define a reality for the team. There's a crisis out there waiting for you. There's a team out there who will look to you for support, guidance, and inspiration. Now it's your turn to prepare to be the best leader you've ever had to be. I know you'll be ready. Thank you.